Okay, I am back. The sordo time. Yeah. Alright. Klein City was a pair of buildings located just south of the Shibuya Scramble Crossing. A small plaza rested in front of the entrance to the east building. It was not nearly as big as the ones in front of Hachiko, the Moyai statue, or other popular destinations. It still found itself used quite often as a meeting place. Even now, around a dozen people were staring at their cell phones, waiting for their engagements to begin. Among those few, only one girl wore an oddly stern expression on her face as she idled. A high school student known as Aoi Sena. She was standing next to the escalator leading down from the Inokashira line station. She leaned her back against a nearby white pillar as she thoroughly scanned the environment with her gaze, contrasting both the sharpness of her gaze and the season. She was nibbling on a popsicle, which in turn made her appear incredibly charming to the casual observer. In truth, the girl was not waiting for anyone, but was instead quietly observing the passers-by. From where she was standing, she could see all the way to the Jumbotron located at Scramble Crossing. A music video from a famous singer was being displayed on it, and on the lower portion of the screen, a news ticker was reporting the latest information about the recent string of incidents, colloquially referred to as New Gen. Not a day went by without New Gen-related news. It was everywhere. TV, newspapers, the internet, weekly magazines, jumbotrons, electronic billboards, everywhere. Although Senna had absolutely no interest in the phenomenon, she would often overhear people talking about it as she passed them by on the streets of Shibuya. Whose eyes are those eyes? Over the past few days, she had begun to see several people wearing t-shirts with those words emblazoned on them. In Shibuya, the phrase had become popular as an obscure meme, and it was now starting to really take off. Despite the brutal scene the words originated from, people would happily walk on down the street, talking about how well the shirts were selling at souvenir shops in Harajuku. A clear indication of how disinterested people were in anything other than themselves. Senna snorted quietly in a contemptuous display, finished the last bite of her popsicle, and closed her eyes softly without losing her stern expression. She listened carefully to the noise of the city. An abundance of different sounds billowed in front of the station on the Sunday afternoon. The roar of trains arriving at the platform, the blaring horns of taxis, people walking and talking, the background music coming from the jumbotrons and from inside the Science City stores. The announcements telling people how to safely ride the escalators. The sounds were never allowed to end. Before one sound finished, another one would appear, creating a multi-layered discord that rang throughout the station. In the midst of all the discordant noise, Senna focused her attention only on the people's voices. Her mind blocked out all other sound, and their words soon became clear.
結局全部同じ犯人なのかな。
違うってニュースで言ってたぞ。手口が違いすぎるって。なんかわかねえ。バンドの歌詞と一緒らしいじゃん。ファンタズムだ。お前あのバンド歌詞がこじつけて有名な中の。今時ファンタズム知らないなんてさ。じゃあ CD 貸せよ。くれてるよな。ほら、これ見てくれ。この前買ってきた。証言埋めたんだ。結構来るじゃね。マジで来るやつ初めて見た。でもあれじゃね。これってニュージェネの犯人に殺してくださいってアピールしてるようなもんじゃん。俺もいよいよ全国デビューか。
最近渋谷超怖い。マジうざいやる気でも入場に欲しいよな。そういうやつが殺される可能性あるじゃない。キモい男とかだけ殺してほしいよね。マジ応援する。
なるほど。I understood none of that. Because it was all so quick. A short click of the tongue escaped from Senna's mouth, and she stopped listening soon after. There was nothing of value to be found in any of the noise. After all, noise was simply that, noise.
この視線の感覚、気のせいか。
Aww. Once more, Senna examined her surroundings. For a while now, she had been feeling a repulsive sensation like cold fingers pressing her spine. A gaze being cast upon her by an unknown entity, one with which she was unable to pinpoint exactly what the source was. Senna pushed herself off of the pillar and she was leaning against. Then, as if she had just remembered something, she stared down at the popsicle stick in her hand.
外れか。
Aww. Gradually growing more and more discontent, she wrinkled her brow and began to walk quickly toward the station. Aww.
あの空はどうしてあんなに泣きたくなるくらい青いのかな。
The sun wished for it to be.
私は望んでない。
No, but I did. Huh? Because this place is your image world, but at the same time it is mine as well.
ね
Ooh. What?
え、あの空は
The hell?
どこにあるの？
Wherever you wish for it to be.
望んでいいの？
Why? Sarah-tan was calling me. That night's episode of Bloodtoon was awesome. Sarah-tan played a huge part in it, and there was a super hot kiss scene. The animation quality was practically movie tier too. Sarah-tan was calling me. Thus, she was saying such many things that I could not wake up. I tore the blanket off my body and got up from the sofa with a groan. The moment I turned off my alarm clock, the voice of Sarah-tan that had been echoing throughout the room disappeared. The Sarah alarm clock I had was very useful. If I didn't turn it off, the volume would slowly get louder and louder, and if I still didn't get up, an obnoxious buzzer sound would ring out. I wanted it to be Sarah-tan who woke me up in the morning, so I made it a point to wake up and not turn it off before the buzzer. Only failed to do so once or twice so far. After all, being woken up by Sarah-tan was a great way to start the day. Staying up was the absolute worst. I played video until dawn, and the couch had been extremely uncomfortable once I actually had gone to sleep, but having her wake me up helped to alleviate some of that pain. It was a school day. I skipped a day last week, so my minimum attendance chart was really starting to fall apart. With the chart, I was only slated to go twice this week, but because of that deviation, I was stuck with having to go 3 times instead. I didn't want to go, but it'd be much worse if I didn't. If I missed any more days, I wouldn't be able to graduate. Again, whether or not I graduated made no difference to me, to be honest. Just a moment ago, I've been having a dream with Remy in it. It was a strange dream. One that felt terribly wistful, one that felt terribly lonesome, one that felt terribly sad, and one that felt terribly distant. Would Remy come to school today? I've been thinking about the day up before yesterday constantly. I've been thinking about it so often that I'd even forgotten to play ESO yesterday. There had been the appearance of Shogun, and the delusion where every person in Shibuya disappeared, but I was barely giving either of those things any thought. It had to have just been a delusion of mine. There's no way Shogun could be such an old man, and the idea of people just disappearing from Shibuya or whatever was completely ridiculous, so there was no point worrying about it. It would have been a horribly realistic delusion, sure, but the fact that I'd allowed myself to fall for something so unrealistic so easily, and get all freaked out about it, was just embarrassing. But regardless, above all else, I was thinking about Remy. The girl I had been calling I had been calling the demon girl until only a couple days ago. Most of what I had felt back then was shaky and surreal, as if it were some sort of dream, but I could so vividly remember the sensation of Rimi's body embracing my own. If she hadn't done that, I could have gone insane and lost myself completely. Why had Rimi saved me? Maybe because we really were friends. I didn't have any memories of us being classmates now, let alone since first year. I remember going to the movies with her along with Misumi-kun. But the way she treated me was definitely how you'd treat a real close friend. She even seemed like she'd been close to crying when she held me. That, at the very least, I didn't think was an act. That was the first time I'd ever seen a girl care about, let alone cry over an otaku freak like me. When she treated me like that, all of my fears and suspicions were blown away in an instant. In fact, it made me feel like I might fall in love with her. No, I obviously couldn't let myself do that. Confusion invaded every corner of my mind. How was I supposed to act around Rimi from now on? Was Rimi my ally or my enemy? Rimi the new gen culprit? She'd saved me, that was an undeniable fact. But it was just as much a fact that I had seen her standing still as could be at the scene of the crucifixion, covered in blood. On my way to school, I stopped by Shoto Park. After what had happened with you, I had put a stop to my habit of eating breakfast there before going to school. There was no way I could feel even remotely relaxed when I thought that Yua could be watching me from anywhere. Even if I ignored that, if she came up to talk to me, she would start going off about her irritating, delusional, schizo bullshit all over again. I didn't want anything to do with a girl like her. Yua was Rimi's underling. Sure, my original guess may have been incorrect, but that didn't mean that Yua wasn't my enemy. It was still possible that Shogun was the boss of the whole thing, and Yua was one of his underlings. Either way, I knew I'd be better off staying as far away from her as I could. Yet, I found myself coming here today for some reason. I examined my surroundings, carefully to make sure that I couldn't see Yua anywhere. And once I knew the coast was clear, I slowly sat down on my usual bench. I took a bite of the chocolate bread I'd just bought from the convenience store, then looked out at the pond. There was next to no wind, and the surface of the water was calm and serene. I could see the occasional shadows of carp-esque fish gliding through the murky water. The park was unusually empty today. It was a very quiet spot. As my gaze wandered across the park, I couldn't help but think of Rimi. To be honest, I'd been dreading going to school today. I knew I'd have to face her if I did. That was the real reason why I was staying at the park. I felt like I'd said a lot of awful things to her. And yet, the smile on her face never faltered. She always treated me like I was a close friend. And I was sure that, when I went to school today, she would keep on doing that as if nothing had even happened. She'd smile and talk to me like we were friends, pretending that she didn't even care at all about what happened in front of 107. It was hard to put it into words, but I felt a little bit annoyed by her constant cheerfulness. Yet at the same time, I also ended up feeling more feeling more cheerful myself when I was with her. I wasn't sure how to act once I did run into her. It was true that I didn't think she was a demon anymore, but honestly, I didn't think of her as a friend either. Misumi-kun had said that she and I had been really close classmates for the past year and a half. I didn't remember anything like that at all. Maybe it really was because of the person controlling me. But making my memories of Rimi, and only Rimi, disappear with pinpoint accuracy like that, there was no way that was possible. Upon entering the school building, I lowered my head even further toward the ground. As was my usual MO, I kept close to the wall and walked slowly toward the staircase. My class was on the 3rd floor. Getting up there was a pretty big hassle. I could really use an escalator or something. When I reached the foot of the staircase, I spotted a girl climbing unsteadily up the stairs. She was dragging her right leg a little as she walked. Maybe she twisted it. Her petite body swayed from side to side. She looked extremely unstable. As other students passed by her, one after the other, this girl slowly continued to climb exactly one step at a time. Watching her from below, I would be able to see her panties any second now. Shit, if I kept this up, I'd be a little bit of a total pervert. The thing I needed was to go in front of a mirror and see myself as Bill Clinton or some shit. Oh. Well. With that thought in mind, I stepped onto the stairs in order to pass the girl. Right when I did, the girl caught the tip of her shoe on one of the steps, and she immediately staggered. She then fell down so hard you could almost feel the crash sound effect. Fortunately, she'd ended up falling on the landing, so she hadn't fallen down the entire staircase. She was still down on her knees from the pain, though, and was staying pretty still. Could this be a flag? Yeah, no way. Even if it was, like calling out to her or anything would even remotely similar would be impossible for me. So I hurriedly slipped past her. Sorry, but you should get some womanizer who's actually in the 3D to help you. So like recently could. I would have helped her. I don't womanize her, but I would have helped. You really should rely on me. But the girl was staying curled up on the ground so motionlessly I started to get a little worried. I was halfway up the stairs when I slowly turned back around to check on her. The girl was gripping onto the railing and trying her absolute hardest to stand back up. Her knees were trembling. She looked like a newborn fawn or something. Her knee was oozing blood. Maybe she scraped it. Her face. I'd seen it before. Was she the girl who transferred into my class last week? What was her name again? I couldn't remember. Oh, how she was crying. Did it hurt that badly? The fall had definitely been pretty bad, but not bad enough that she'd cry from it. There was nobody else willing to lend her a hand. After just barely managing to stand up, she bent forward and peered down at her knee. She must have been checking to see if she'd hurt it. The transfer student wiped away her tears, set down her bag on the spot, and started running around inside. What was she looking for, I wondered. Suddenly, she raised her hand above her head in a triumphant manner. Clasped in her hand was a band-aid. Our eyes met. The transfer student went right in surprise soon after, then hung her head. Regardless, she looked like she was okay, so I was sure she'd be fine without me. Thinking that, I hurriedly made my way to class. Off of me! As per usual, I kept my head down and my gaze fixed on my toes. And while still remaining silent, I took my seat. I sat down and remembered that the transfer student had said something to me on the day she transferred. I've forgotten all about it after everything with roomies, but I wondered what she'd meant.
Yo, Taku.
Still, according to routine, Miss Me called out to me. He didn't have any other friends besides me. He'd always talk to me and no one else, so I was starting to genuinely suspect that.
聞いてくれよ。昨日さ、怪しいおっさん2人が校長室に入ってくのを見たんだ。
Who?
で、俺とリミトでこっそり盗み聞きしてみたらびっくりしたぜ。その2人、刑事だったんだぜ。
Ah, Bon and Sua. Yo! Detectives.
なんか深刻そうに全校生徒の名簿とか見ててよ。もしかしてニュージェネと関係あんのかな？
Maybe it's a true new gen culprit, someone at this very school. Couldn't help it, but the face popped into my mind. Ease.
なあ、盗み聞きしてたら見事にバレちゃったんだけどね。
I jumped. Speak of the devil, Jesus Christ. But my heart rage leaped when I heard Rini's voice invade the conversation. Couldn't look up. I was too nervous, but this was a completely different kind of nervousness than last week's.
あれはお前がドア勝手に開けたせいだぞ。分かってんのか？
しょうがないでしょ。本物の刑事さんって見るの初めてだったからちょっと興奮しちゃってつい。
兄はどうやったらついドアを開けるんだよ。
Huh.
おかげで俺らまで刑事から話を聞かれる羽目になったんだからな。
大臣ってば刑事さんに聞かれちゃまずいことでもあったの？
Huh.
そういうお前はどうなんだ。
さあね。
Misumi-kun and Rimi were having a conversation with my desk sandwiched in between them. They were completely ignoring my existence, but to be honest, I was grateful for that. Even if Rimi did talk to me, I didn't have any faith that I'd be able to say anything back. I was hoping that the bell would ring before they got the chance to say anything to me, but when I glanced at the clock, I saw that there was still about 5 minutes until class
そういや
started.
タク、ここに来る途中で梢ちゃん見なかったか。
Kozoe. Kozoe-chan. Who?
ああ、そっか。どうせお前のことだから
あ
覚えてねえとは思ったけど、マジでそうだったんだな。先週転校してきた子のことだよ。折原梢ちゃん。
Oh, so that was her name. Orihara Kozoe.
階段で
階段？
見た。
お、そっか。じゃあもうすぐ来るな。
Misumi! Misumi-kun's voice gave off an aura of intense enthusiasm. I hadn't seen him this energetic since a few days ago when he found out that FES was from the next class over. In other words, I'd never seen him give his all for anything except girls. Which reminded me that just last week, Misumi-kun had already got a hit on the transfer student the moment she'd arrived. You really are incorrigible. You've got a girlfriend and everything. I hope you're real proud.
なあ、梢ちゃんってマジ可愛いと思わねえ？
He asked me something I had trouble answering. I moved my head down ambiguously, which he apparently took as a yes.
太郎、俺一目で気に入っちまったよ。なんか守ってやりたくなるんだよな。男子みんなも同じ意見だよ。どいつも可愛いって言ってんだ。けどよ、女子の間じゃあんま評判良くねえんだよな。まだ転校してきたばっかだぜ。それなのに早くもうざいみてえな意見まで出てきてんだよ。このクラスの女子って性格悪いやつ多すぎだ。
それって大臣のせいじゃないの？だいたいそのうざいって言ったのどうせ大臣の彼女でしょ？
ああ、そうだけど。
そりゃあ彼女にしてみればうざいに決まってるよ。自分の彼氏が目の前で折原さんを口説きに行っちゃってたらさ、私でさえよく喧嘩売られるんだから、大輔君に近寄らないでって。しかも一人じゃなくて何人かから言われた。
マジ？
自覚なしか。少しは反省したら？
いやー、モテる男は辛いぜ。
これだよ、さすが女の敵。もう私フォローしてあげないからね。折原さん来た。
なんか怪我してるみたいじゃね？
本当だ。どうしたんだろう。
She got hurt back when I saw her on the stairs. She wasn't going to tell them that, though. I was trying to avoid talking to Rimi in any way possible.
俺、ちょっと言ってくれ。
Misumi-kun ran up to where the transfer student was. He said Rimi was the only one left standing close to my desk. Misumi-kun, please don't go. Rimi didn't say anything, but she didn't move away from my seat either. Considering the fact that I was hunched over so far on my desk that I could nearly sink my teeth into it, I couldn't see her expression. All I could see was her waist, but if that were true, then it would mean she had to be facing me. In other words, she was looking at me. I should probably say something. Maybe a greeting of some sort. It wasn't like I ever greeted people normally. It would be even more natural for me to suddenly start doing it out of the blue like that. Maybe I should bring up this transfer student. But it wasn't like I ever chatted with Remy normally. It would be even more unnatural for me to suddenly start chatting with her out of the blue like that. I could thank her for the day before yesterday. No, before I did that, maybe I should apologize for being so rude to her after she'd done so much to help me. I could also ask her about why she'd been there back then. I could ask her if maybe she'd hug me because she liked it. Because she liked me. Or I could ask her about why she was at the side of the crucifixion. No. None of these topics for conversation starters at all. What was I supposed to do? The silence put more and more pressure on me. I knew I ought to say something, and I knew it would be awkward to stay silent, but I still couldn't force out any words. I hated the 3D world so goddamn much. I was tired of almost joking over just trying to talk. I just wanted to hurry up and go home to my comforting serotonin. His voice suddenly broke the silence. I jumped in surprise and a shudder ran through me. I still couldn't look up. His voice was quiet. I felt her breath faintly on my ear. When I looked up in surprise, I realized that she'd moved her face really close to mine, and she was now whispering in my ear. His body was right next to mine. The soft, warm body that had hugged me in the middle of that road. My mind was going completely blank. The only thing I could think of was the sensation of Rena's body against mine. I nodded frantically several times. Upon telling me that, Remy left me to leave the classroom. I felt the sudden urge to ask her something. She just said something dangerous like that. I wanted to ask her. Back then, what did it all look like to you? Considering the fact that she hadn't mentioned anything in particular, it seemed like she didn't know anything about the people temporarily disappearing from the streets of Shibuya, or anything about the wheelchair-bound Shogun. Which would probably mean it had just been one of my delusions after all. That's why I wanted to ask her. But I didn't think I'd be able to look up and do so after all this time. Either way, I couldn't do it today. I couldn't even prepare myself to ask her. So, next time then. I'd ask her the very next time I came to school. Yeah, I should probably organize the questions I wanted to ask her before then. A transfer student. Oh, is she coming over here? Is she going to come down on me for not helping her on the stairs earlier? She didn't seem like the type of person to do that. Maybe she wasn't coming up to me, but she actually wanted Remy for something. The transfer student came up to Remy, then stopped. He didn't say anything. What the hell? As long as Remy was here, I couldn't raise my head. The transfer student's toes were fidgeting, but she still didn't try to say anything. For some reason, the new student timidly then placed a single bandage on the edge of my desk. It was a fancy one with a picture of that weird character, Garofagi, blazoned on it. Was she giving it to me? How do I react? This Orihara Kozue girl was kind of weird. What? Was she crying? How was she crying? Was it because I didn't say anything? The transfer student hadn't said anything to me either. Remy swooped in to cover for me. Come to think of it, that was a little bit odd. I didn't know next to anything about Remy, and yet she knew a lot about me. I would say it's more than just an introvert, honestly.
なにガチガチに緊張しなくてもね。私にも絆創膏くれるの？ありがとう。
So that, the transfer student bowed her head deeply to Remy, and then she sped her way back to her seat. It's almost like she was running away or something. Okay, I'm definitely not going to be streaming too much longer. Probably going to be going for up to an hour. That was a fucking spider.
なんだかよくわかんないんだけど、タク、その絆創膏もらってあげるべきだと思う。
Anyway, so what was that last one? Alright. I agree. Why is she giving it to me? Friendship. Friendship. That's what it is, Taku. Friendship. Me. Person who is more towards an introvert and an extrovert can see these things. Taku is beyond just an introvert. And more than just basic mental illness, too. Because I have ADHD. So, and I can recognize people with some amount of autism at least. And of course, probably some amount of depression and whatnot, but not that much. Because they're not similar enough that I can see that. Autism I can see pretty easily, mainly because I've seen plenty of people with autism online. And of course, those with ADHD can display symptoms that are very similar to high-functioning autism, apparently. I have first-hand experience with being confused with someone who has autism, even though I only have ADHD. So, yeah. Anyway, I got the feeling Mitsumi-kun had come back.
転校初日に俺が校内を案内したんだけどよ。
Aw.
うわ、早くも手出したんだ。
Hmm.
ま
Yeah.
だ出してねえっつうの。んで、まあ1時間ぐらいかけてあちこち回ったんだけど、もう俺一人で延々と喋り続けたよ。あの時はさすがにちーっと疲れたぜ。
Week? Only an hour? Only an hour? He's weak. I can talk for hours. Before my voice is too worn out to actually use.
しかもすぐ泣きべそかく。
そうそう。今も急に泣き出したから何が起きたかと思ってあたふたしちゃった。
そんだけピュアなんだよ。なあタク、お前ならわかるだろ。梢ちゃんの仕草一つ一つの可愛さってのがよ。
I do.
お前流に言うなら
Yes.
萌えってやつだ。
I agree.
なんだ、
Huh.
クソでも我慢してんのか。
Huh. I shook my head from side to side as hard as I could.
たく、さっきからちっとも喋ってくれないんだ。
Yeah, that's because you're here. I wasn't ready for that. I had never talked to a friend who was also a girl all friendly before. Then again, I'd never had a single female friend before. That's throughout my entire life,
でもさ、
according to his memory.
今折原さんと話してみてなんとなく思ったんだけど、彼女と話してるとなんだか疲れちゃいそうかもなんて。
女子ってのはマジで同性に対して容赦ねえな。
Huh.
ま、梢ちゃんは俺が守るからいいけどな。
ほんの数十秒前に大地も相手するの使えたって言ってなかった？
Huh.
うっせ。
Huh.
小勢ちゃんはタクと同じ匂いがするぜ。ほっとけねえって感じ？
Ah.
それはわかるかも。
I see now. I see why he hangs out with Takumi. Here's a presence that makes you want to maybe help him, you know? Well, I mean, he is special in a few different ways. After all, the sound of the bell told me that all classes were done for the day. The second it went off, I packed up my things, got up from my desk, and left the classroom. I couldn't stand the subtle distance I felt between me and Mimi for a second longer, so I wanted to get out of the classroom ASAP. Besides, I also had to stop by Mangadarake today. In the end, I hadn't been able to say a single word to Rimi, and had several chances to talk to her. Just like this morning, I'd kept my mouth locked shut the entire time. Might have screwed up by doing that. It would make it even more difficult to talk to her the next time I saw her. You're right. He's right. It would be for him. I was sinking deeper and deeper into the thick swamp that was trying to figure out how the hell to act around Rimi.
あ、鬼。
Just as I was about to leave the school building, I was hit with the voice of a certain irritating person. Nanami came running up to me, putting a trash can in her hands. She must have been in the middle of taking it out. Unfortunately for me, the bitch spotted me. I tried to ignore her and speed my way out of there, but just like usual, Nanami refused to let that happen. The hem of my uniform was pulled tightly from behind.
妹見て逃げるなって何度言えばわかるの？
Huh.
なんだよ。
なんだよじゃないよ。お兄が逃げるからナナもつい追いかけちゃうんじゃん。
Okay, then don't chase after me if you don't need anything.
相変わらず家に電話かけてこないし。
はあ、
まあナナはもう諦めたけど、どうせお兄が真面目に連絡入れてくるとは思えないもんね。
Oh, she actually understood me for once. Again, I didn't know how she wouldn't, being my sister-in-law. Even though I had no need for the slightest for a 3D one.
というわけで、これからも定期的にナナがお兄の部屋に様子見に行くから、感謝してよね。
Damn it, of course it had come to this. If only I could somehow be freed from the curse of my obnoxious little sister. It's called... Call home. Takumi. Only call home, and then you'll be free. I mean, she'd probably still drop by every now and then, but still. Well, even though it had never happened, I at least deserved some form of compensation for putting up with her. I thought about that kind of thing daily. Oh, that was it. This was my chance to put my plan from earlier into action. If I was lucky, it might even work as a modest form of revenge. I checked my surroundings and I started walking towards the courtyard, only for Nanami to follow me.
何？
ちょっと来てくれ。
なんで？なんかあるの？
It was so unbelievably annoying. Was she incapable of following me or something? What a fucking idiot.
ナナミに大事な頼みがある。
え？頼み？お兄が？なのに？
Nanami's eyes went wide.
珍しいじゃん。お兄が頼み事なんて。
とにかく黙ってついてこいって。
あ、ちょっと待ってよ。
There weren't many people in the courtyard. During lunchtime, the place was always crowded with students eating lunch, but the only people who'd bother coming here after school were from the gardening club or whatever.
で、頼みって？
Nanami lowered the trash can and she was staring to the ground and gave a big grin as she puffed out her chest.
あ、条件はマクで汚りね。その条件飲んでくれるんなら、 本当は嫌だけどお兄の頼み聞いてあげる。
Every little goddamn thing she did pissed me off. I can't believe she actually wanted me to pay her back for this. I ain't. Didn't help that I'd already treated her to McD before too. Forget it.
わかった。おごる。
え、本当？今日のお兄いつもと違うね。
Huh? Well, yeah, because I was lying. With that, I handed Nanami my cell phone. I then asked her to call the friend caller whose number was stored in my call history. 03X733X991.
着歴の番号にかける？相手は誰？
ネットの知り合い。
Nanami was tilting her head with a suspicious expression on her face, so I quickly told a lie that would seem plausible to her.
どうしてナナがかけるの？
かければわかる。
なんか企んでない？
Huh. Oh my god. All you have to do is shut up and do what I say. You can't even do that, and just go home. I have no use for you.
じゃあもうお前には頼まない。
I went to snatch back the cell phone, but Nanami pulled her hand back, evading me.
あ、わかったってかけるよ。かければいいんでしょ？ほんとわがままなお兄だな。
Huh. Yeah, you should talk. Choking back my anger, I watched it with bated breath as Nanami dialed the number in question. Nanami, blissfully unaware, put the cell phone to her ear and waited for them to answer. I noticed that on the hand she was holding the cell phone with, she was wearing a yellow bangle. That was the one I'd given her, wasn't it? Then again, it was more something that she'd just decided to appropriate rather than me actually giving it to her. She even wore it when she went to school. Did she really like it that much? Even though it was just some cheap-ass bangle I got for free? Well, for free. Kinda. I mean, he was pretty much scammed out of. The equivalent of 100 yen, at least back then. $100, rather. Based on rough conversions of what it would have been like back then, which was relatively more stable than it was now, as far as I know. Now I really did have no taste at all. Not that I could really speak for anyone else, though. So, now that I think about it, I'm probably more talkative without my ADHD medication. Holy shit. I'm just now noticing that. At least I'm more talkative when I'm thinking of something that, when I think of something that is tangentially related. No, I really did have no taste at all. Not that I could really speak for anyone else, though. This didn't matter at all right now. Anyway, who was gonna answer the phone? Would it be some scary token piece of garbage? Best case scenario, it'd just be a prank and had nothing to do with Shogun or Yua.
あ、もしもし。
What? Someone was picked up, so Nanami called out as she covered the receiver with her hand. Only to raise her eyebrows soon after. She then thrust the phone back in my direction.
お兄。
Huh?
なんだ。
なんだじゃないよ。現在使われてませんって言ってるよ。
Huh? I snatched the phone from Nanami and put it to my ear. What I heard
お
was,
かけになった電話番号は現在使われておりません。
"Aw."
番号をご確認の上、もう一度おかけ直しください。
She was right. I guess that meant it really had been a prank, huh? It was a prank where you had called a bunch of random numbers simultaneously over a couple of days, and when the prank was over, both the number and the phone were destroyed, or something like that. Either way, it was a pretty large-scale prank. But, meh, didn't matter to me either way. I knew now that the mysterious call had been nothing more than a prank, and nothing else mattered anymore.
ねえ、一体何なの？
もうお前用なし。
Huh? Leaving Nanami standing there, I saw her walk off. Didn't take long for her to chase after me.
どういうことか説明してよ。
should have already.
お前掃除中だろ。ゴミ箱置きっぱなしだぞ。
でも説明聞いてないもん。
僕は帰る。
That dealing with Nami, I walked quickly to the school gate to right on my tail.
お兄、じゃあマクディおごる約束だからね。ちゃんと覚えといてよ。
知るか。
ちょっと嘘ついたの？
Oh.
まあな。
Nami stopped dead in her tracks, looking pretty upset. I kept right on moving.
お兄のバカ。
He yelled out in a voice loud enough to echo throughout the entire area. Fed up with her, I went to turn around and saw her glaring at me with her hands on her hips.
お兄なんて携帯の電磁波の影響で脳みそスカスカにされて死んじゃえ。
Shit, thanks to Nanami screeching, more eyes were looking our way. Even though I made it a point to stand out as little as possible at school. My sister was the most obnoxious shithead of all time. Not giving a damn about what Nanami had said, I ran off toward the school gate. It was best to retreat in times like this. Nanami's voice could still be heard even after I passed through the school gate. It made me feel completely and utterly drained. Azuma Matasema was one of my favorite artists. They were ultra famous and their fans would always form long lines at every one of their events. I'd heard that the new Platoon Doujinshi that had come out this summer had sold out in no time flat. I wanted to go too, but all the events that it was being sold at had been way too crowded, to the point where it would have been too much for me. Because of that, I found myself tearfully giving up. Weak! Then again, these days, I mean, I would need a mask, because I've never gotten COVID before, and I don't want to risk that. I don't want to risk getting that. Especially in crowded places like conventions. It had been naive of me to think Mangararake would be safe just because they'd had consignment sales. There had indeed been some consignment sales, but they'd been annihilated in practically an instant. On various online auctions, the premium price was set at tens of thousands of yen. All scalpers should die in a fire. Even back then. Even back then. In the good old year of 2009, I believe. Of course, scalpers. When was hit? When was hit? 2008, 2009, 2009. Okay, yeah. All right. Derogatory term used to refer to people who acquire difficult to find products only to sell them at a higher price in online auctions. A derogatory term? Nah, man, it's not a derogatory term. It's the appropriate term. A Kamaitachi phenomenon? An extremely rare phenomenon in which the body is suddenly marked with a wound as if it had been cut by a sharp blade. Kamaitachi are wind yokai from the Koshinetsu. Huh? I know that phenomenon. I know that phenomenon well. I've had those. Well, I doubt that's actually. I'm pretty sure. Hold on. Although, to be fair, I mean, it can happen IRL. It's just, random. Yeah. Are Wendy okay from the Koshin-etsu region of Japan. They have sharp sickle-like claws on both hands, which local legend states are used to cut their victims, causing the phenomenon described above. The true cause behind why this phenomenon occurs has not yet been ascertained. Good job. Good job. Good job. Regardless, with all that in mind, I thought that it was probably impossible to get my hands on it. However, just yesterday, while I'd been surfing that channel, I just so I went out and see that the new issue had been recently restocked Manga.arcade. Just why I headed for it immediately.
神様、奇跡を起こしたまえ。
I prayed to the heavens in front of the store, and then I stormed inside. I scanned the doujinshi section with my eyes as wide as dinner plates. I went back and forth down the aisle, searching over and over again to make sure I didn't miss anything. But I couldn't find it. No, was it already sold out? I casually observed the cashier. That's a girl. She wasn't very cute, but she did seem friendly. And Harry even wants to use the hyper-advanced technique known as asking the clerk about whether or not they had a certain item in stock. It's very easy. Just ask them. Just ask. You know? The reason was, of course, that I didn't have the courage to do so. Weak! And not only that, but the title of Azuma Matasema's new book was Serotonin Cosplayer Gone Wild. See, asking about it was completely and utterly impossible. I mean, she'd right. The worst she can do is ask, if I asked a female clerk something like that, I'd no doubt be labeled as a pervert. I knew that for a fact. Thank you very much. Bro. Stop kidding yourself. They've seen plenty of... People like that have seen plenty of things go by their cashier, cash register. They wouldn't care. You know, they wouldn't care at all. I should know. In the end, I simply gave up on asking the clerk anything and exited the store dejectedly.
帰るか。
Maybe I should go to that cafe. Flipping between the two as I walked, a sword I had seen before flashed past the edge of my vision. It was a sword with a distinctive two-pronged blade. The world that girl B, the girl who called herself Senna, had been carrying around the city. In the crowded center guide, the tip of the sword jutted above the heads of people walking down the street. As it got close to me, I hurriedly took refuge in a nearby arcade. When it peered out from the shadows, didn't take long for Senna herself to appear, a sword resting on her shoulder. There she is. Wearing an expression that was just as terrifying as ever, she walked quickly toward the station. She didn't seem to have noticed me. But even then, after having experienced the humiliation play, I was looking around and or a sword just like hers, the bold way that Senna walked around, that a cure in the world impressed me. Was she not embarrassed to hold a huge sword like that? I mean, she had to have been questioned by a police officer at least once. No way she hadn't. As I pondered that, Senna's figure got farther and farther away. Were they still badass these swords like the one she has, I wondered. The one I'd gotten a hold of didn't glow nor did it have a badass shape, so I wasn't exactly satisfied with it. In comparison to the sword that Senna was carrying, mine was far less impressive in terms of design. The entire reason behind me getting a sword was to use it as a protective charm. Back at the Scramble Crossing, I'd been trembling in fear and wished for something I could rely on. After Remy had shown up, I had become slightly more stable, but the situation in front of me was not getting any better. I still had a lot of enemies, such as Shogun, Yua, etc. But that was the reason why I wanted to get my hands on a D-sword that looked way stronger than one I actually had. Of course, there was also the collector spirit found in every Otaku. As if drawn to Senna's sword, I had been staggering over toward Scramble Crossing without realizing it. Oh god, I bit my lip. I didn't want to be out in front of the station. I would reluctantly go to Sintergaya's school or whatever because I had things I had to do there, but if I could help it, I preferred not going anywhere near them. Having a crowd of total strangers around me made me feel as if any escape route had been stolen away, and just the illusion of that made it hard to breathe. Unsurprisingly, the area in front of the station was infested with people. I was starting to feel more and more sick, so I had to look down at the ground to try to hold back the nausea a bit. Because of that, the next time I looked up, I realized I had lost sight of the conspicuous sword. It looked like she'd been walking around toward the Hachiko statue, but they're not even walking across the sidewalk. No, across the crosswalk. What the fuck? But then the light above Scramble Crossing turned green. I see people rushed into the intersection from various directions. It became pretty chaotic. A whole host of people walked every which way, and they did it all without even so much bumping into each other. When I saw something like that, I realized how unrealistic the empty Scramble Crossing I'd seen in my illusion the other day really was. There probably wasn't even a single second in the entire year where there were no people in this place. What was I even trying to accomplish by chasing after Senna in the first place? I hadn't even been able to ask the friendly Manganarake employee whether they'd have something in stock. So how exactly was I supposed to talk to someone who looked unfriendly and scary looking like Senna? Besides, she might have been my enemy. I didn't know what she'd do to me if I carelessly followed her around without any form of protection. What is wrong with me? I should just go home. I finally decided on that, but right when I was about to turn around, I noticed a white chain lying down on the street. Couldn't see the end of it because it was concealed by the legs of various pedestrians, but it seemed to be stretching from where I was standing all the way to the other side of Scramble Crossing. What the hell? It was a ridiculously long chain. Was it for construction or something? But there was no evidence of construction going on anywhere. I couldn't believe they'd left a chain lying around like this. Was this the location they were shooting at for some movie or TV show? No, they wouldn't be filming at the time as credited as this. Okay, then did someone throw it away? Chain this long? It'd already be hard enough just to bring it this far out here. Regardless, it was definitely going to get in the way of people and cars. Tilting my head in confusion, I examined my surroundings to see how people around me were reacting to it. I thought it would be dangerous if somebody caught their leg on it, but not a single person was paying any attention to it. I narrowed my eyes and tried to look at it one more time, thinking it might be an optical illusion or something. The chain was still there. There's a theory that states that optical illusion created. Oh, wait. Occur when an error is generated as a result of the brain operating under a cause and effect hypothesis, but arriving at a false conclusion. In this case, the conclusion based on one's experiences up until that point does not match up with reality, causing dissonance. As well as this, there's a theory that humans block out 99% of what they perceive. It's said that if a person were to process all 100% of what they perceive, they would not be able to remain sane. Who the fuck is sane? Who is sane? I don't believe anyone is. Not completely. I didn't have the courage to touch it, though. It freaked me out too much. It wasn't a cheap-looking plastic one. It was an extremely sturdy-looking iron chain. How long had this thing been left sitting here? Aww. If these were normal circumstances, I'd think it was some kind of trap. After which, I would have run away in fear, suspecting that something terrifying might have been waiting for me. Now, for whatever reason, I couldn't help but wonder where the chain led. My mind was overtaken by a compulsive obsession that led me to it. That told me I had to follow this chain. I crossed the ground crossing before the light turned red, bumping into several pedestrians as I did. At the end of the continuous chain was an old dark green train car that was sitting next to the Hachiko statue. The wheels had been removed, so it was closer to a monument or an exhibit rather than a functional train car. You're supposed to be able to enter it freely, too. The white chain was extending from the open door to the inside of the train. There were tons of people parked in front of Hachiko, but no one was paying any attention to the chain. They didn't show any signs that they were even aware of it. As well as that, there were no signs of any people on the train at all. With a gulp, I appeared inside the train car. What? In that moment, I realized that it was a trap. I couldn't believe it myself, which was why I hadn't suspected it at all before. The car appeared to be empty, but there was the figure of a single person inside. Aoi-sana was sitting cross-legged on a burgundy train seat. Her sharp gaze was fixed firmly on me. For some reason, she was holding a light blue popsicle in her hand. That was a Crunchy-kun, right? Forget it. I couldn't care less about Crunchy-kuns right now. More importantly, the gigantic D soda she had been carrying was mysteriously nowhere to be found. I wondered where she had even managed to put the thing with how huge it was and all. In place of the sword was a white chain pulling around one of her legs. Which reminded me that back when I had first met her in Cindercrash, she had said something about finding her in a train car in front of the station. That must have been what she'd meant. Was she the one who'd put this train here? Could she really have been lugging around such a long chain? Looked like it weighed over 10 kilograms. Not only that, but it had to have been over 50 meters long. I had no idea what was up with this girl. She was entirely unknown to me. She wasn't normal. Could she be Shogun? For feeling scared now, I moved to run away without saying anything. Only for a sharp voice to strike me right then.
Hide.
Well. I feel that that this is a good stopping place for now, given how I'm a little tired. You joined at the wrong time, so I guess I could continue, maybe. Depends on how long you actually stay and all, I guess. I'll continue. I automatically stopped dead in my tracks. A blatant, commanding tone, one that acted as if the train belonged to them. Of course, I had no intention of going inside. I didn't know who she was. I was scared of her, and I was awful at talking to 3D when all alone with them. I didn't want anything to do with her. Aww. Sena's attitude told me I wasn't allowed to talk back. He hadn't moved a muscle, but I didn't know what she'd do if I showed even the slightest hint of trying to escape. She was actually a Dokyen, and one that would beat up beat someone up without hesitation. Talk about scary. But if I showed her even the slightest hint of submissiveness, she'd walk all over me. I'd had to deal with Dokuns several times up until now. Whenever that happened, the best thing to do was to just run away. Didn't matter if you obeyed them or not. You'd get hurt after they were done with you, no matter what you did. So the best option was to just run away. Let's see if I could find an opening. Suddenly, something from behind me pushed me hard. Caught off guard, I was unable to brace my legs and I toppled clumsily to the ground. Then I looked back towards the entrance to see who the hell had pushed me. There were a lot of people outside the train waiting around for appointments or whatnot, but I couldn't point which one of them was the culprit. Maybe they had already run away. Why had they felt the need to shove me? Why would someone do that? Do something like that? It must have hit my knee when I'd fallen down, so as it hurt a little bit. Avoiding eye contact with Senna, I staggered back to my feet. I suddenly realized the bundle of chain that had been at Senna's feet just a moment ago had disappeared without a trace. I thought that she'd moved it somewhere, but there had been no sound to indicate that, and she was still sitting on the same seat she'd been sitting on the entire time. Even if she had moved it, where the hell had she moved it to? I didn't see it anywhere on the train. Huh? Huh? Oh, is she talking? Oh, I think I know what she's talking about. That delusion in the Scrambled Crossing. I'm pretty sure that's what she's talking about in terms of errors. Or an error. So then, completely unconcerned with how lost I was, asked me something unintelligible yet again. As I shook my head left and right in confusion, his expression became increasingly stern. He then eventually looked away from me, let a small sigh, then took a bite of her popsicle. Freed from her sharp gaze, I nearly sank down to the floor again. Type had looks that could kill. I would have sat down on one of the seats if I could have, but then when I realized that she might have said something to me if I did, I couldn't bring myself to. Huh? What error? Oh. That was what she meant, and yeah, I'd seen it. I followed the weird thing all the way here after all. Huh. Illusion? What was she talking about? Huh. Excuse me? No, I don't have one. How could I? That wasn't going well. I could barely get a word out. He realized. Said that glanced at me, then jerked her chin toward the window. People. Lots of people. Felt like there were even more people than before. I felt like I was going to get a headache just from looking at them. There are people with their heads glued to their cell phones. People smiling over phone calls, and people standing and staring at the stream of people. Practically everything I saw out the window was people standing around waiting for other people. I mean, if there were so many people here, why hadn't anyone come to the train since I had gone on? Aww.
あるはずがない。エラーは確かに存在する。すべてのものは人も含めて電気仕掛けだからな。
Aww. What kind of chuny plotline was that? Jokes aside, I also thought about similar things pretty often. I wasn't trying to say that chuny plotlines were bad or anything. After all, the world was overflowing with books, movies, and anime that were nothing but chuny insanity. Like this. Well, was it that a writer or movie director or whoever else could come up with chuny plot lines like that, and it was all well and good, but when amateurs like me did it, everyone made fun of us. The world's greats had all been chunibios. Just think about it. The Wright brothers had genuinely thought that they could fly through the sky 100 years ago. Napoleon had boasted that the world impossible is not in my dictionary. I don't know if he did. If he said that, I honestly doubt that he did. That's why chunibios weren't something to be mocked. It was the path that all the world's greats had taken. But my question was, why had this girl suddenly started spending all this chuny shit at me?
何を見ているか
Aw.
じゃない。何を見せられているかだ。
Aw. I'll just save here. I'll be actually ending now, I think. Let's see. Yep. I shall see y'all next time then. Goodbye.